planet has a huge ice kingdom that supplies the ocean with 10 to 15,000 icebergs a year. But this is not Antarctica. It's here that the iceberg that sank the Titanic once broke off. 81% of an area the size of Mexico is covered with ice, which is occasionally over 3 kilometers thick. Nearly 2.5 million cubic kilometers of ice and snow. White land would be a fitting name for this place, but its real name is the most paradoxical that one could think of: Greenland. Nobody knows exactly why that is. Perhaps we'll find the answer under the Greenland ice. It keeps secrets that can surprise and even scare you. What hides under the Greenland ice? Greenland doesn't hide one of its secrets under the ice, but keeps it almost in plain sight. And for a long time, it gave researchers something to think about. This is a mysterious, crater-like geological structure near the city of Monotsoc. The formation's dimensions are more than impressive, about 100 kilometers in diameter. Naturally, the impact crater hypothesis arose, and it was even officially proposed in 2012. Scientists have suggested that 3 billion years ago, our planet collided with an asteroid or a comet in this place. Over time, the crater was partially destroyed by erosion and buried almost 23 kilometers underground. If the hypothesis were confirmed, it would be the oldest known impact crater on Earth. However, hopes for a surprising discovery were destroyed when Canadian geologists tested Monotsoc's igneous rocks. They turned out to be identical to those found outside the supposed affected area. This means that they formed as a result of the same geological processes associated with a mysterious magnetic anomaly. The views on this anomaly were outlined in a study published in Earth and Planetary Science Letters. The strange structure appeared not because of a cosmic collision, but due to a mysterious ancient geological process whose nature is yet unknown. So at 2.23 billion years old, the Yarra Bubba crater in Western Australia still retains the title of the oldest known impact crater on the planet. However, the scientific community wasn't disappointed for long. A few years later, Greenland brought yet another impressive surprise. Under the island's ice cap, there was discovered a forest. Of course, to be precise, there were only its signs, but it was still very impressive. And the history of discovery goes far back, almost to the middle 20th century. The U.S. Arctic Military Research Base operated in Greenland from 1959 to 1967. In 1966, scientists conducted a very complex and ambitious experiment, considering the technical capabilities of that time. They drilled a glacier to a depth of 1,368 meters, reached the subglacial soil, and extracted a 14-meter-long core. The last 3.44 meters was the soil, resting under the ice for an unknown amount of time. The research base pursued mostly military purposes, so it didn't study the soil closely. The frozen core was literally left on the shelf and forgotten for many decades. And this turned out to be for the best, since modern analytical methods weren't around in the mid-20th century, and the unique sample would most likely have been wasted. But in 2017, someone remembered what happened in the past. The sample was removed from storage and was carefully examined over the next several years. Fortunately, the researchers' arsenal now had such miracles of science as electron microscopy, energy dispersive X-ray spectroscopy, cosmogenic nuclides, and all sorts of other state-of-the-art methods. So, when studying the samples mined in Greenland 1.5 kilometers under the ice, the stunned scientists found branches and leaves instead of sand and stone. As it turned out, the largest island on Earth didn't have an ice sheet until relatively recently and was covered with green forest. The study was published in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. Ice sheets typically pulverize and destroy everything in their path, says Andrew Christ, one of the study's authors. But what we discovered was delicate plant structures, perfectly preserved. They're fossils, but they look like they died yesterday. It's a time capsule of what used to live on Greenland, he explained. The unexpected find is important not only for understanding the Earth's past. According to the most optimistic estimates, Greenland's glaciers, which are melting at a record pace due to global warming, contain enough water to raise global sea levels by over a meter. Understanding how this ice has disappeared in the past will help to better predict climate change that will occur in the next 50 years. And now, let's see another amazing discovery that shook the scientific world in the past 2021. It would seem that there's nothing supernatural in glacial reservoirs. Subglacial lakes have been discovered before, both in Greenland and Antarctica. But one of these findings became almost a sensation. Most of these previously discovered lakes contain only water trapped in ice or between rock and ice, and the origin of these reservoirs comes from the melting water from the glacier itself. However, the recently discovered Paleo Lake most likely formed when there was no ice around it. And this means that we are dealing with a real time capsule that has preserved in itself everything that was here when Greenland was truly Greenland. The most valuable and fascinating thing that scientists discovered is the bottom sediments of a huge ancient lake, hidden by the 1.8-kilometer Greenland ice sheet. This was the first time such a subglacial formation anywhere in the world was found. The study was published by the Earth Institute at Columbia University. The lake bed can be hundreds of thousands or millions of years old and contain unique fossil and chemical traces of past climate and life. Researchers have recreated a detailed picture of the lake basin and its surroundings. They analyzed radar, gravimetric, and magnetic data that was previously collected using aircraft flying at low altitudes over the ice sheet as part of NASA's ICEBERGS operation. Ice-penetrating radar provided a complete topographical map of the land surface beneath the ice. This revealed the outlines of a smooth, low basin lying among the rocks. Measurements have shown that the basin's material is less dense than the surrounding hard rock, a clear indication of perennial deposits, including those of biological origin. All the data suggested that there was a huge lake with an area of about 7,100 square kilometers in this place. To put this into perspective, it's significantly larger than the state of Delaware. The researchers calculated that the lake was between 50 and 250 meters deep. The sediments at the bottom have a breathtaking thickness of 1.2 kilometers. It remains a mystery what these deposits might contain. However, the discovered lakebed may provide an intact, pristine archive of fossils and chemical markers dating back to an unknown distant past. This could be an important repository of information in a landscape that right now is totally concealed and inaccessible, said Guy PAXMAN, a researcher at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory and the leading author of the report. We're working to try and understand how the Greenland ice sheet has behaved in the past It's important if we want to understand how it will behave in future decades. And since we are talking about the future decades, other researchers have some bad news for us. The fact that the Greenland ice sheet is melting has been known for a long time, but only now an international research team has discovered that it could completely disappear by as early as the middle of this century. The lakes forming on the glacier's surface are at fault. They are rapidly expanding and merging into larger reservoirs due to global warming. Water seeps into the shield's base and stimulates destruction from within by transferring heat. Because of this, there appear cracks that accelerate other lakes running off. According to the researchers, such a chain reaction can accelerate ice melting by 400%. One of the research group members, Paul Christopherson of the University of Cambridge, confirmed this ice sheet was relatively stable 25 years ago, but now it loses 1 billion tons of ice every day. This causes 1 millimeter of global sea level rise per year, a rate which is much faster than what was predicted only a few years ago. Ecologists say that the glacier's core would never have been directly exposed to heat if it were not for the newly forming lakes. They used to take weeks or even months to appear, but now they appear in a matter of hours. To make a more detailed forecast, scientists have created a 3D model based on observational data obtained in recent years. One of the proposed scenarios showed that up to 124 lakes can flow out in 5 days, with their networks reaching up to 135 kilometers long. This data suggests that the entire Greenland ice sheet could melt completely by the middle of the 21st century. Christopherson added, transfer of water and heat from the surface to the bed can escalate extremely rapidly due to a chain reaction. In one case, we found all but one of 59 observed lakes drained in a single cascading event. Just think about it. We may well see a time when Greenland will turn into something completely different. For example, something like this. It's not difficult to guess what will happen to the global sea level. The melting of Greenland alone would raise levels up to several meters. The estimates vary greatly, but none of them bode well. It would seem that we should raise the alarm. In fact, environmentalists have been literally screaming about the impending disaster for more than a year now. But considering these terrible forecasts, many analysts notice that Greenland's authorities are strangely passive, and this tacit agreement finds a rather transparent, albeit extremely cynical, explanation. Melting glaciers promise to make Greenland crazy rich. This is the village-like town of Narsaq in the south of Greenland, with a population of about 1,200 people. According to preliminary estimates, the nearby area contains up to 1/4 of the world's reserves of rare metals. Nowadays, such elements as terbium, cerium, lanthanum, and praseodymium are priceless treasures. And gold doesn't even come close to how valuable they are. These metals are crucial for high technology. They are used everywhere, from smartphones to nuclear reactors. And there are plenty of places like Narsaq on the island, and even more places that are, for the most part, still deserted. Greenland has almost 40 million tons of rare metals waiting for their time to shine. For comparison, world reserves excluding Greenland are 120 million tons. One doesn't need to calculate Denmark's potential income on a calculator. It's simply mind-blowing. Researchers continue to discover more and more previously unknown natural resource deposits in Greenland. Iron, zinc, vanadium, chrome ores, nickel, platinoids, and diamonds. All these resources haunt entire countries, not to mention profit-seeking magnates. Until now, Greenland's ice sheet has multiplied by zero any serious industrial exploitation of the island's natural resource. But global warming is bringing a new gold rush closer than ever.